you know, in the end, we're all bumbling and stumbling toward grace. Because as the great hymn that we all know and love says, amazing grace, it is grace that has led us safe thus far. It is grace that will lead us home. And I'm just going to surround Susanna's story with the words of Jesus. Because what is the Christian life? I actually didn't bring this out. I don't want to bring it out in the first service. Do you know what the Christian life is? You know, we're going to read Jesus' words, and we make so much of it, you know. You take up your cross and follow me. If you save your life, you'll lose it. What shall profit a person if they gain the whole world and they lose their own soul? That the very element of what it means to be a Christian is, who are you trusting? What are you trusting? And you can be religious, you can do all of the things that religious people do, but what are you trusting? We all live stories. We all live this reality. I was in Minnesota last week, and I was talking with Noah last Sunday. He played a game on Saturday night. It was a away game. He's on the road, and he was on the way home on a bus, and he said he's listening to two of his teammates talk. They're both freshmen. Noah's a senior, and he's a captain, so he oversees them. But I mean, this is after a football game. And the two guys are talking after the football game, and one of the guys, his name is Frankie, and in Frankie's story and in Frankie's life, he is Frankie the third. He's the third Frankie, the third Frank. And whatever, I don't know. I don't know that Noah knew what led to the discussion, but the guy's talking to his teammate, and he says, you know what, though? When I get married and I have kids, I'm ending it. There'll be no other Frank again, because I've never known unconditional love in my life, and I am going to cut off. I'm not going to give someone a name I'm ashamed of. I mean, these two kids, two football players, talking after a game. I've never known. I don't believe unconditional love exists. And Noah said he stopped in and stepped in along with the actual guy who was talking with this other fellow and said, but there is this thing called unconditional love, and it doesn't really emanate from us humans. It emanates from a God. The guy went on to say, well, I just don't know. And Noah himself, he said, well, I don't know what it means. So that Christianity came up. I don't know what it means to be a Christian. And his idea of what being a Christian was full of this and this and this and this. And, the kid, was not interested in that. And my own son says, you know what? I don't know if some of the things he mentioned didn't even probably revolve into the right and wrong world. They just are whatever is the world. And Noah said, really, the ultimate question of Christianity is, who are you trusting? And we make so much of things, but isn't that the question? God doesn't care. I know it sounds crazy coming from the church. Doesn't care so much about what you do or don't do, or who you love or who you don't love. He cares who you are trusting. And when you grab that, the rest takes care of itself. It takes care of itself. We're stumbling toward grace. You can go to the passage. I roared through it in the first service, going to roar through it here. Jesus went out along with his disciples. He asked the ultimate question, kind of creates this focus group. Jesus is, in a sense, talking about what it means to be a follower of him. It's a quintessential passage. You've been in the church, you've heard it. Like, who do people say that I am? I got a focus group, and, every religion tries to deal with Jesus. It doesn't matter. Every religion does. If you're a Buddhist, they have an idea about Jesus. If you're a Hindu, they have an idea about Jesus. If you are a Mormon, they got an idea about Jesus. If you're a Muslim, everyone has to answer the question about who Jesus is. So it's a profound question, and everybody's got an answer as to who Jesus is. And they say, well, John the Baptist, Elijah, whatever. It's this little focus group, a little polling group I'm dealing with here. And who is Jesus? Then go to the next slide. Jesus gets really pointed and says, well, I'm really not care what people say. I don't really care what the word on the street is about me. I'm not really cared about the word on the street. I want to know, who do you personally think I am? Who am I? Peter answers it correctly. Says, you're a Messiah, Son of the living God. In the book of Matthew, Jesus says, well, yeah, you're right. But really, the question becomes, what is the Messiah? Because Peter can only be right for a few seconds. Jesus says not to tell anyone, and maybe Jesus said not to tell anyone because while Peter got the answer right, he got the idea of Messiah wrong. Who is the Messiah? I mean, isn't that what we're looking for? It's what Susanna is looking for her whole life. It's what you and I have been looking for our whole lives. We're looking for, it's like this rescuer, this deliverer, this person that will make things right in my life, that will give me the, significant other I want, will give me the kids I want, will then give me the health I want, which will give me the finances I want. And that's the idea of Jesus. We have a Messiah who's, in a sense, a cosmic Santa, a cosmic vending machine. That's our idea of Messiah. And that was Peter's idea of Messiah, so don't feel bad. It's just, so Peter says, okay, you got that right, but let me give you a description of the Messiah. Here's the description of the Messiah. Peter, you got that right. So let me teach you about who the Messiah is. Well, the Messiah is someone who's going to suffer and be rejected. It's probably our idea of Messiah. By religious people, by elders, chief priests, and this Messiah is going to die, and he's going to rise again on the third day. Peter doesn't last long in that reality because, you can go to the next slide, and Jesus says this plainly. I have this as a side note. If there's anything, I came to the part of my story is I actually became a minister and wanted to be a missionary, thought I might be a missionary overseas, but then the Lord just put this calling on my life to be a missionary to the church in America. And if there were two things that I've said for over 20 years that are plainly, that I want to speak plainly, as Jesus says, I want to tell you plainly, it would be these two things. That what Messiah means, the rescue and deliverer, will always be rejected by religious folks. It'll be rejected by cod talkers. It will be rejected by the people who think they are best at the law. It will be rejected by the people that outwardly you and I might think are on fire for Jesus. Those are the people that did it. And also that the idea of the Christian life, if I could state this plainly enough, is in the midst of our stories. And it includes your possible rejection. It includes the idea that your story isn't working out the way you thought it might work out. And that's okay. If I could state it plainly enough. We are followers of Christ. And it's okay, and you don't need to be ashamed of it. That the story you wanted, that we look at Jesus, we look at religion, and you think, I got kids to raise, I got a significant other to love, I got health to keep. How can Jesus come along and just make my world wonderful. And if there's anything true about Nature Coast, is we are filled with stories where that just quite has not happened. I mean, Susanna's not the only one in this room that lost children. She's not the only one. Where does that fit with Messiah? There's people in this room that are on their third, fourth, and fifth marriage. It's not squeaky clean. Montina's sitting in this room and lost her husband this week. Where was her Messiah this week? When we live these stories, and Jesus says, Peter actually pulls Jesus aside and thinks, you know what, your plan's wrong, God. It's nothing like telling God his plan is wrong. I mean, who has the balls to do that? I mean, I don't know. Peter did. Peter did. He's like, oh, okay, I got some kahunas here. Like, God, you're wrong. That's not how it's going to work out. Jesus pulls Peter aside and rebukes Peter back and says, get thee behind me, Satan. Your mind is on God's purposes, or not on God's purposes, but men. Go to the next slide. And he summoned the crowd of disciples together. And he laid it before them and says, if anyone wants to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. And we always wonder, well, how do we do that? How do we deny ourselves? And I almost think that the enterprise of the church is built on not denying yourselves. I mean, most of the time you come to church, and what do you hear a minister give you? He gives you yourself. Like, if you will just do this, this, and this, if you can be disciplined enough. I mean, why can't everyone be disciplined like Susanna was? If you're just disciplined like this, and albeit I've been a pretty good boy, I've been a pretty good man, if you could just do it like I do it or whatever, if you just do this, this, and this, and it always cracks me up. Because wherever you're at in your life, and I know, and there are realities that places in our life are because things have been done to us, but there are plenty of places in our life where we are struggling and we are bumbling along because we made poor decisions. Like, who in their right mind takes the person that made the poor decision and says to the person who made the poor decision, you are the one, you who made the poor decision, are the one that can get you out of this mess. I mean, why do we turn ourselves to the poor decision makers? We don't have to do that. What does it mean to deny yourself? And yet somehow we come to church week after week and we expect, I mean, this is, how is your walk with God? How is your walk with God? And you know, even that question, how is your walk with God? Guess what it does? It focuses your attention on who? Yourself. In essence, when you ask the question, how is your walk with God? What is the minister or ministress? There we go. What are we asking you to do? When I ask how your walk with God is, I'm asking you to take a selfie. We might as well hand out selfie sticks here every time you come into worship. So you can have a picture and you can answer the question. That's not denying yourself. That's giving yourself and saying, you know what, this church service is just all about you, taking pictures of yourself, trying to figure out, and maybe some wise person up here will give you enough advice that you can now go and make a more beautiful picture of yourself next week. That's what the Church of Christ has become. And maybe God will put your picture up on his fridge this week. What if the gospel is that God this morning has a picture of everyone in here on his fridge and he says, you're just absolutely freaking beautiful. You see? Isn't that beautiful? And you're beautiful because of me. Take up your cross. Whoever will save his life will lose it. For what does it benefit a man if he gains the whole world, loses his own soul? You can go to the last slide. I'm going to skip. Jesus ends this passage and it's like, oh no, oh no. Whoever is ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man will also be ashamed of me when he comes in glory. And what is the first question we ask when we're not denying ourselves? Oh no, is that me? Is that me? Or am I like Peter, which correctly acknowledges Jesus is the Messiah one minute, and the next minute Jesus is saying, get thee behind me, Satan, you got me all messed up. I mean, we play upon this even as Christians. Back in the day, before social media, email was the first thing that really came along that kind of connected us with each other, and you didn't have to send snail mail anymore, and you could just send it, and right away, you'd be someone's mailbox. So before there was social media, I would get, because I'm in the religious world and the Christian world, I would get an email that said, and it would quote this verse and say something about Jesus, and you know what? And then it'd say at the end, are you ashamed of me? If you're not ashamed of me, you will pass this email on to all of your followers. And I never did. Does that mean Jesus was ashamed of me because I didn't pass that email along? Now on social media, you'll see something like, if you're going to say amen, are you ashamed of me? What does Jesus mean by that? And of course, I never do that either. Am I ashamed of Christ? Is being ashamed mean that you shout the loudest in your emails, or you shout the loudest in social media, and that means you're not ashamed? And I think it's a far cry from what Jesus said here. Because he said this, you will be ashamed, for whoever is ashamed of me and what? My words. Well, we don't have to go very far in this passage to figure that out, right? Who is ashamed of Jesus in this passage? Peter. He didn't like what? He didn't like the words that Jesus said. In fact, he was quite ashamed of them. What were the words that we could tend to be ashamed of? That the path of the Christian walk is about who you are trusting. And the path for you and I may mean our rejection. It may mean hardship. It may mean all things. It may not be this power and glory religious feel that maybe you came to church to feel. Maybe, I think Apostle Paul struggled with this. Are you ashamed about who the gospel actually might let in? Right? And who it reaches. I mean, we are weird in different church. Are you ashamed of who it pursues? I've been here long enough to know that certainly within our community, you might be made to feel shame for what? For actually coming to this church. Why? Because of the expansion of who God's love. Because of someone like Dustin who said, love more and hate less. Are you ashamed because of who God decides to judge and not judge? Because it's not a popular thing to say that you judge no one, but you offer them the gift of Jesus Christ. What do you mean by that? God doesn't send us crosses to make us stronger. Quite the opposite. He actually has sent your cross, whatever it is, to weaken you, maybe even to crush you, so that all you have left is him. That's Christianity. Be ashamed of that. But like it's them. I love Nature Coast Church. You guys are the greatest. You are. Because we all do this together. We all stumble toward grace. And we all find Christ. And guess what? Yes, he does change us. He changed me. He's changing me. He will change me. But I don't have to define it. I don't have to define the time frame. I don't have to say it isn't. Isn't patience a fruit of the Spirit? That it may take 4 decades to begin to shape someone. That someone might have been judging all along. We have a God. Well, listen, we won't write the story. We wouldn't write the story. I can listen to Susanna's story, and I think she certainly said it in this story. If she could write the story, and there's nothing wrong with this, if she could write the story, Dustin would still be here. He would. My greatest fear in my whole life is that. It's losing a child. God forbid that I can't get out of this life before that happens. God forbid. Because I don't ever want to have to deal with that. But we have a God who right now, even this day, thousands upon thousands of cars are going to drive by on 19 and hear Dustin's last words, both in Spanish and in English: love more. I give up. I honestly give up. Because all I got and all you got is to trust him. Not explain him. Not understand him. But to trust that he's got your story. And if you're really honest, if you're really, really honest, you do not need to know how to pick up your cross and follow Jesus, because I don't care if you are young in this room. Maybe Isla's a little young to understand it yet, but she probably didn't get her bottle when she wanted it, so whatever. But there isn't a person in this room that the cross has already found you and your story. Will you follow him in the midst of it? And I don't know what your cross is. It could be your own children. Your own kid is an addict. Could be your significant, I don't know what it is. Are you ashamed of the table? I didn't think about this morning. People laughed when I said it, but I began to realize this. You know, this isn't our table. I think we become ashamed of the table, that God works through bread and wine. Like he just works through this. That's stupid. He just works through some water and baptism. That's stupid. Oh, Jesus. You know, what really matters is this. You know, we're just ashamed of it. Listen, I grew up in an environment where we did this table 4 times a year on Wednesday night when no one was coming. Why? Why, for crying out loud? It's his body and his blood. It's not my table. It's not Nature Coast's table. It's his table. You're visiting here for the first time this morning thinking, oh no, it's communion. What can I do? Come. It's not my table. I mean, we're so arrogant that we think you can't come to this table and let you met. This is what we do. You can come to this table when you've met with a God talker like me, and I've decided whether you can come at night. What? Whatever. Like, what is that? It's for you, and it's for me. Come with the cross he's given to you and lay it before him. We're going to sing as we close. So praise team, come up and sing. And if you're helping serve, come. Thursday night, we're celebrating the life of Ralph. I know that was announced already, but Ralph Atola, we would love to be here, you to be here to share in that and share with Montine in that event. I love the fact that we share together the places where the cross has found us. I would also be remiss to say that's not just happened a long time ago or once in your life. It goes on, and it will keep finding you. Whether you're young here like Alma still, or you're aging like me, the cross will continually find you, because we are followers of Christ, and he has promised that the cross will find you, but he has also promised that in whatever you suffer, whatever is killing you right now, there is resurrection, and there is joy, and there is peace. So go in peace. Amen.